This surge in Fuliza borrowing should definitely worry you. In just 6 months, Kenyans borrowed 629.2 billion Kenyan shillings. This was a 39.8% jump from 450 billion Kenyan shillings. When you look at active users, that number jumped from 7.5 million people to 9.1 million people. Now, stay here with me and let's have an honest conversation. When you see a growth like this, do you celebrate? If you do, let me now break it down so that you stop celebrating. This growth is not worth celebrating, but this is what it means. This jump implies that many Kenyans are struggling economically, so they have to borrow as little as 250 to buy food or other essentials. Because if you look at data further, you'd see that people are borrowing 250, 400, 500. So that should actually inform you that there is a problem in our economy where ordinary Kenyans do not have money to meet their very basic needs. Let's understand Fuliza a little bit. That you go to a supermarket or to any retail outlet, but in your M-Pesa, you don't have enough money to buy a product or a service. What does Fuliza do? If, for instance, you had 50 shillings, but the product or service you're buying costs 100 Kenyan shillings, Fuliza will add you that 50 bob that you miss. But you'll have to repay it. That anytime you top up, that 50 bob will be deducted. But there's something that you should remember. There is an interest. That every day, that 50 bob will earn an interest. So the fact that you have less to pay for a product or a service, it tells you that you don't have enough disposable income. And if you don't have enough disposable income, it literally means that we are struggling economically. The worst part of it is that we are struggling to afford the very basic. This is just from Fuliza. But if you looked at other digital lending institutions, they are also lending more and more because Kenyans are rushing to those digital lending institutions faster and faster in droves. That still informs you that people do not have enough money to afford the very basic, which essentially means we are struggling economically. It is because of this that I continue asking simple questions. As the president and other mandarins in his government argue about transitioning Kenya to upper middle income, and some even insist to first world country, I usually ask, why don't you focus on the very basic first before you even start such a conversation? Because the problem we have here is Kenyans do not have money in their pockets to be in a position to afford essentials. So when you start a conversation about making Kenya a first world country, people really don't agree with you, or that doesn't augur well with a majority of Kenyans who are struggling to put food on their tables. So the conversation shouldn't be about making Kenya a first world country. Instead, the conversation should be, how do we make sure that Kenyans have more disposable income that allows them to afford the very basic first? So when you see such worrying statistics, I think we should now focus our conversation to the economy. That when these leaders now come to us seeking re-election or seeking your votes, ask them, what plan do you have to fix the economy? Because for long, Kenyans have been putting that aside and focusing on things that don't really matter. We've been focusing on our community instead of our survival. So moving forward, Kenyans should find a way to turn the conversation into the economy. Public debt, how do we create wealth for ourselves? Should this economy just work for the few or for a majority of us? What do you think about this surge in Fuliza usage in the country?